signatories to at least 2 international organizations where governance is a strong part of their principle and a strong part of what their mantra is, centric to the core of what they do. And then what we'll try to do is relate it back to where we are today in a Barbados environment. Now, tonight I will do it slightly different. I'm not going to take any chances on winging it tonight, so I will be doing a little bit of reading for you tonight because there's some technical stuff, but we're not going to get into too much of the technical details. Governance in its concept, we could spend a whole week on dealing with the governance principles. There's many versions. If you Google governance on the internet, many different organizations have different principles, but the centric core again is the same. What I would like to start with is just reiterate what we had posted, just so that you get, for folks who didn't look at the Facebook group, what the outline is tonight. Basically what we are looking at is, sorry, just turn off phone just in case it rings. Our outline tonight, we said governance. What does it truly mean to you? What is governance? What has the government promised, committed to in the form of governance? How do we make our government more accountable to us? How do we find out more what's going on in our government? Transparency, basically. How do we participate in what affects us? And what are our rights as stakeholders in our country? Now, one of the things that was missing from in there was why good governance? And I think it was prudent to read, again, this little excerpt that I picked up today, and it was why good governance? Good governance is characterized by the principles of participation, consensus, accountability, transparency, responsiveness, effectiveness and efficiency, equity and inclusion, and the rule of law. It assures that corruption is minimized, the views of minorities are taken into account, and that the voices of the most vulnerable in society are heard in decision making and the allocation of resources. This actually came from the DLP Manifesto of 2013, and it's by our Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Frundle Stewart. And I thought it was prudent that we start there because there's a lot of discussion in terms of governance and how it relates to the actual administration and or other business organizations, etc. What I would also like to start with is just highlight 2 of the organizations that we are parties to that have a strong core to governance, and I would like to use their definition of governance. The first one is called the ISSA. That's the International Social Security Association, and that's where our NIS is a member of. So their definition, I would like to just say, is the concept of governance is understood in many ways by different people. Its definition often depends on goals to be pursued, the entities involved, and the social political environment within which these goals are to be achieved. Many definitions of governance focus on processes, structures, and arrangements that pertain to the administration of an entity or unit of an organization. The ISSA aligns its definition of governance with those that underscore the exercise of authority and power. Those are pretty powerful words. They're pretty powerful beings to live by, and our NAS is supposed to be abiding by these principles. There are more that I posted on the website, and I also posted the link to the ISSA. There's other definitions of governance highlighted within the ISSA doctrine. They reference the Asian Development Bank, which describes governance as the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a country's economic and social resources development. The World Bank refers to governance as consisting of decisions and institutions by which authority in a country is exercised, and the ISSA itself defines governance as the manner in which the vested authority uses its powers to achieve the institution's objective, including its powers to design, implement, and innovate the organization's policies, rules, systems, and processes, and to engage and involve its stakeholders. Good governance implies that the exercise of vested authority is accountable, it's transparent, it's predictable, and participative and dynamic. The main points within there is accountability, transparency, and participation. The principle of accountability is at the heart of good governance. At a political level, it means making rulers accountable to the ruled. To enforce accountability, governance structures and mechanisms are needed to enable the principals to hold their chosen trustees legally responsible for their acts and decisions. Therein ends the textbook on governance. Each organization has variations of their perspective, but the centric core remains similar. The question we should be asking ourselves is, why should we be receiving the status on our NIS as a sort of a surprise from an international agency like the IMF? Why should we be receiving critical information from our governor of the central bank in the form of a newsletter? Why should there not be formal Q&A sessions to fully ventilate the issues? Why should we find out by seeing toilet paper floating that there's a sewage problem, especially when a senator is reported in a newspaper indicating that the problem was known 8 years ago? Why was there no information on the Cave Hill project forthcoming despite repeated calls and discussion, especially when we are signatories to the Rio Accord? And Principle 10 is clear in this regard. Principle 10 we have this on our website, and it relates to environmental issues on the UN side, and where they encourage participation by communities in all developments. So as I said, the fact, as I said, we're signatories to the various international organizations where governance is becoming more than just a fashionable accessory. It's a way of being and a template for empowering the people of a country. Thus, by not adhering to the principles of governance of the various organizations, we can be deemed in breach. The examples, of course, are the Rio Accord for the environment, as I just mentioned, as well as the ISSA for the NIS scheme. Accordingly, there are precedents set for this government to follow guidelines of good governance, to act in a transparent manner, be accountable, and participation by the community. However, it is not necessary to reference principles of international organizations. More compelling is the words from the current administration. They are words that can be taken from the 2008 manifesto, and it was repeated in 2013 manifesto. They deemed it important enough to repeat it twice. Hence, I'm not understanding why folks are commenting that there's no participation or feedback, because it's there. Hence, all we should be asking for is the current administration to do what they said was appropriate and what they said they were going to do. We just read from the opening white governance. We just read what was said as part of the overview of the DLP manifesto in 2013. And then I just wanted to read from the 2008 manifesto. And I agree with all of the points. In the DLP manifesto 2008, I said I agree with all these points. The people will be kept informed of what the government is doing on their behalf through regular press briefings following meetings of the Cabinet of Barbados, press briefings by ministries, departments to inform Barbadians of major developments and changes, the publication of details of agreements and contracts, including the government and its agencies, formal ministerial statements at regular intervals on the progress of ongoing programs and projects, a revision of and adherence to the rules regarding parliamentary questions, a policy of formal reporting by parliamentarians to constituents on stewardship and issues affecting the constituencies. So, as you can clearly hear, and this is what people have been asking for. It is that they have, it is that, and I'm not understanding why we're not getting these, because this takes the cloud and the mystery out of what's going on in government. And I believe that all we need to ask for is that this be implemented. This will be an integral part of the whole process. Now, reality is, who is to blame if this does not occur? I do not blame government. Yes, I hold them, as in any government, I hold them accountable and responsible, but I do not blame them. I just want you to try a little experiment. Place your right hand here on anything that on your chair or table or whatever, and put your other hand in the ear, the left hand. And I want you to try as best as you can to get to, with your palm of your hand face down still, your right palm still face down, I want you to try to get you to clap with your left hand on your right hand with your palm face down. It is not possible. It does not work. You can try it as many times as you want. The old adage is it takes two hands to clap. So I don't blame government in the least. Who I blame is what I term as the silence of the lamp organizations. Their role should include ensuring that we keep on a good governance path. Their role should include ensuring that the best management of our assets and money by government. Some of these organizations receive subventions from the government, meaning your tax dollars, my tax dollars, is given to them to promote their organization in hope that it will benefit you, the shareholders of Barbados. If they will remain mute, as quoted by Alex MacDonald, past president of the BPSA, in a recent periodical, then we will like back our tax dollars. Be a social networking, backpacking, lunch, dinner, or cocktail meeting organization on your own dime, not ours. Please give us back our tax dollars. The blame does not end at them. It ends at you, Krystle, Colin, me. We, as in you, Krystle, Colin, and me, are all part of varying organizations, whether directly or indirectly. Our role should be to continually ask the organization that we or our employer are members of to press for transparency, accountability, and participation. The primary principles of governance. Organizations are defined but not limited to the following. You have the BCCI, the BPSA, the BHTA, the BMA, ICAP, Bar Association, CFA, the unions, BES, and the list goes on. We all live here. We want governance, and we all live here. Further, we can continue the process by contacting our parliamentary representation, parliamentary representative. I'm a member of the CFA Society of Barbados, and they certainly hear from me. And much to their disdain, the board will continue to hear from me. My parliamentary representative will hear from me, as well as the candidate from the other party. I encourage you to do the same. Lack of adequate information leads to conspiracy theories about corruption, whether real or imagined. Apart from adhering to good governance principles, I would suggest that we look into an organization called Transparency International. I only know what the website says. I also understand that Guyana recently implemented and followed the protocols of Transparency International. In principle, I would suggest that a grouping of the Silence of the Land organizations begin a due diligence process benefits evaluating Transparency International. And last but not least, we are currently at 3,294 days, or 470 weeks, 4 days, or 9 years, 1 week, 2 days since the integrity legislation was to be implemented. But who's counting? The promise has run its course. It is time to implement without further delay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Now, we just had Jeremy protesting because of the president of the Barbados Economic Society. He does give a lot of lip and calls out a lot of the persons who tend not to exhibit signs of good governance. So, yes, Jeremy, you are vindicated. Your society is very much one of the biggest spokespersons out there that call for accountability in Barbados. What I do find, as of recently especially, there are a lot more persons, individuals more so, who are calling for accountability, who are speaking out about issues that previously would have been unknown. So you have like the guys from Research in some sense. They are calling out and speaking out about environmental issues that are going on that we as citizens, we can do something to make a difference. You had the guy, I think his name is Aaron Truss.
Yeah, I'll touch on that.
Yes, but we're having citizens who are just bypassing government and trying to see how they can actually make Barbados better. And it is a little sad in the sense that it almost feels as though people have given up on trying to make government accountable and to have them share information about what is going on in Barbados so that we can fix it. But it's also another area where I feel a sense of pride that Bajans are taking it on themselves to identify the problems and see how we can fix it ourselves, whether this government is willing to give us what we demand or not.
I just want to ask Jamal here. Jamal said very strong words, but how do we cause action? Well, first of all, this is not meant to be critical of government. It's meant to be constructive. It's not meant to be critical of any organization. It's meant to be constructive. And how do we cause action? Well, Jamal, as I said, you may or may not belong to an organization directly or indirectly. If your employer may or may not belong to an organization. But the emphasis we need to put pressure on the organization, and it's not really more from the, again, not from the perspective of being negative, because getting transparency and everything is not necessarily negative, because a lot of times government is falsely accused of different things when in fact, if there was ventilation of the issues, then people would understand. I'll give an example. Now, I have no credibility to this. I was just explained recently. Potholes is, you can't have a discussion without potholes, no, or transitory inconveniences. But so we had things, we have things where we see, you hear, there's 10 people on the side of the road, that's one person fixing a hole. There's these kind of jokes. But when it was explained to me this evening was, oh no, that's not for us. What was explained to me was the reason why. And again, please don't hold me to this. It was just explained to me that the reason why you have so many people on the side road is because the compactor has to be in some way manually lifted off. So you have to get that on and get off. So you need 10 people for that process. Now, if we have a little bit better PR from some of the governments and then more proactive, it would play down a lot of what I call the angst in society, where we're quick to criticize, and that's not the objective of what we should be trying to do in terms of encouraging government. Governments is trying to make you do the right things on a consistent basis. It doesn't necessarily mean that lack of governments means corruption. That's why I kept the Transparency International away from this discussion. Corruption is a separate discussion. It doesn't necessarily mean that because you have lack of governments, you have there's corruption. That is not this part of this discussion at all, not from my perspective. What I'm just saying is that it'll be much better if issues are ventilated, because then it quells the conspiracy theories that go along with any of the discussions. We have things with the terminals that we talked about, the National Oil Terminal sale last week that we talked about. In some respects, I understand if the government can't really discuss a lot of it now because it may be at a tentative stage. But there are certain things that we can do that would help in terms of the PR. And basically, what I think that people in society are asking for is exactly what was written in the 2008 manifesto. Me personally, I don't need anything else other than what's in that 2008 manifesto, what the regular meetings, if you work in an organization, it's better to have regular meetings with staff, with management, with everyone, just to ventilate the issues so everyone knows kind of what's going on, because then it cuts down the mystery. And that's just my point.
But you have to admit, this is 2016, and a lot of the things in those manifestos just have not happened. I want to touch on some points that was raised by Shari and Troy, where they spoke about solidarity. And we saw the effects of that even with the whole pothole discussion. If it's just one person that is speaking out about the issues that are identified in Barbados, it's very difficult to get traction. But with the amount of bombardment that government would have received with regards to that pothole issue, you actually saw the action come forward. And I think it should give Bajans hope that we need to stop with this, oh, this ain't gonna make the difference, this isn't gonna work, and all that kind of thing. If we come together, and we saw it happen, we came together, we all agitated for this particular issue to be resolved, we got action to happen.
One of the things I want to be clear of is that we don't confuse governance with PR issues. Me personally, on the pothole side of things, I think it was primarily a PR issue rather than governance. Governance has a little bit more.
It didn't have governance involved though, because
Correct.
People were speaking out about the fact that road tax is supposed to go towards fixing roads, and if you're not seeing the roads being fixed, tell us what is happening with the road tax dollars.
Yeah, I agree, but what I was saying more in the PR. Potholes is not unique to Barbados. Potholes is not, potholes has been around from the beginning of time and will be here next year. Just by the nature of the thing. And again, my understanding with a lot of the issues in terms of filling the potholes is being able to access the asphalt from Sir William, because obviously home Drum Street first, so he apparently, allegedly, don't hold me to it, he uses his first. But so we need to just make sure that we don't mix up PR and governance. Governance. I just think that the whole issue with the sewerage and the potholes, there was governance issues in there, but I just think that a lot of it is PR that could have been get ahead of the issue a lot in those things. But again, that's just my point.
Colin, what do you think?
Well, one of our responsibilities as citizens is to be active. So we should not be asking, what do we need to do? We should always know what we need to do when it comes to governance, because citizens need to be active in their community. We can't just go and elect 30 people every 5 years and then walk away from them. And this is one of the challenges in this community. We don't have mechanisms like a city council or what do you call it? Municipalities in Barbados, which have on-the-ground responsibilities for certain areas and take those responsibilities away from central government. The central government should really be dealing with the major issues of defense, foreign affairs, and taxation. But I've said one of the biggest mistakes we made in Barbados was the abolition of the Bridgetown constituency, or Bridgetown vestry, the elimination of the vestry system. That worked because the people who were responsible for the things that get under the citizen's skin, like garbage collection, like potholes and stuff, were taken into a central government framework. So you don't get to speak to your politicians. When you had a mayoral system, you have much more regular contact with the politicians, and the ability to really hold a city council accountable for the day-to-day issues is much easier to do than to try to interact with a cabinet member who's representing the national interests and national priorities. So, and the community councils don't do that, because the community councils cannot take on the responsibility of fixing potholes or dealing with garbage collection or dealing with issues with noisy dogs or stuff like that. Those mechanisms just do not exist. So to go back and answer that question, we do not just turn off after the next election turn on for the 3 weeks of the campaign before the election. Every day we have their accountabilities and issues of accountabilities we see like cleaning of a well, and then the mold is left right back on top of the well.
Yep.
I mean, after nearly 50 years of independence, the things that we did in 1966 cannot continue to happen in 2017.
Well, that's
just does not make sense.
similar to a point that Joanne made, because she's saying that we have not made, since we became independent, we have not made the system our own in a way that can work for us.
Right.
We have raised integrity legislation that has not passed. Duane raised this point, lots of people raised this point, but the problem is, how many people know about the integrity legislation one? And out of those that actually know about it, how many of them care that it has not been passed?
Right.
How many of them understand the impact that it would have if we actually had it in place and could hold persons more accountable for a lot of the things that we are griping about? But we can't be bothered to push the legislation because you don't see the connection between the things that we actually have issues with and the fact that this integrity legislation can assist with that.
Right. We've talked about integrity legislation, but one of the things that's more concerning is that there has been a bill sitting on the board paper in Parliament to repeal the Public Accounts Committee.
Which is another thing that I have an issue with, because the Public Accounts Committee is one of the few things that we have that tries to hold persons accountable for these same. Well, you recently would have seen where the 3 ministers, when they were asked to come before the committee to answer about the housing issues, they refused to show up and went so far as to get lawyers to say that it was illegal for them to show up before the Public Accounts Committee, a committee of Parliament that would have helped them to clearly explain to the public why what they did was not wrong. That's the whole point of the committee. You explain to the public why you did not do anything wrong, and the first thing they do, instead of going forward and explaining that they did nothing wrong and proving that they did nothing wrong, they run to a lawyer to try to get out of appearing before the committee.
Right, and that has not been referred to the Committee of Privileges to Parliament. Yeah. But that's a core accountability issue.
Yeah.
That's core accountability, and we certainly are not. Well, certainly I'm not versed in the right or wrong of that, so I can't pass opinion. We can only say, well, yes, there's a Public Accounts Committee, and then what should be the role of the Public Accounts Committee, and then what should be the role of the parliamentarians within that committee. But certainly I can't pass judgment. I'm not a lawyer.
But the Public Accounts Committee was established as a standing committee in Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It is a committee that almost every member of the British Empire has, and the structure has always been the opposition leads that committee.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is only the opposition that can hold the government responsible or accountable.
You can't
That's a key
really
role.
be self-accountable.
Right, it's a key role within the parliamentary system. The fact of the matter is that it is the standing committee of Parliament, and the person who, as far as I'm aware, that has the responsibility to rule on the appropriateness of if that committee exists properly or not, is the person considered the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian is typically the person who is the expert on parliamentary procedure. Right? So I think it was really out of line for them to go to an external attorney, where the ruling can come from the designated parliamentarian within Parliament. And all of a sudden, after 50 years of independence, and for the colonial period before that, where the Public Accounts Committee existed, we're now saying it is not properly constituted.
Which is laughable, because even there's something which the audit community calls independence in fact and independence in appearance. And I would apply it here, because if you want to show the people that you are truly accountable for your actions, even if for no other reason, you want to give the appearance that you are being accountable for your actions. As a minister, I think that it really dishearten the people of Barbados to see your ministers fighting so hard not to show up and be held accountable.
Right.
To not prove that they have integrity. That was very, very disappointing.
Well, just again, getting back to the core of governance. Again, not meaning to just get into on the political side of things. Governance really, again, is transparency, accountability, and participation. And if we were to implement and have the principles of government adhered to, then these things will not become an issue. And if the silence the alarm organizations, and again, the organization is plural, not just the organization itself, because you can have a situation where, like Jeremy, very vocal in the BES, but does that mean that everyone in the BS is vocal as front? Because so, and it's not necessarily being again vocal and being agitator. It's really just a quest for information. At the end of the day, a government has no money. Fundamental thing of what a government is in place is to manage our money and our assets. And if someone is in a prudent fiduciary responsibility as that, they must be held accountable, and it must be a transparent role. And as I said, the fundamentals of good, honest governance, by the principles outlined with at least the two organizations that we know of, that we are signatories to, as well as what has been put forth in the DLP and in the manifestos. The good governance relates back to accountability, transparency, and participation. So that, in my mind, I think that's all we should be asking for. And again, it's not using the words of an international organization. We're using the words that was given to us in 2008 and repeated in 2013. And in my view, I don't think we should be in a time where I was at a ICAP function and the head of the BPSA was asking on 2 or 3 occasions to rejoin to have the social partnership kind of be more active. Now, I don't understand, that was quite a shock to me, being that we are in a scenario of supposed good governance, that this should be something that's on a regular basis. And I think that for us to get back on the path, we need to adhere to the principles of good governance.
Well, a couple of people would have raised the point, which I completely agree with, that the nature of human beings is generally to look out for themselves, which is why Duane would have raised the point, you cannot just elect persons and just leave them to themselves, because chances are they're just going to try to look out for themselves first, and you have to hope that they're benevolent enough to leave something back for the rest of us.
I don't see that as a fair point.
That is how a lot of human beings are.
Yeah, well, it's not a fair point to paint any politician, whether here or anywhere in the world, with that sort of brush. I mean, that could be the impression that we have, but to make a broad statement like that, it puts.
I don't think it really means politicians per se.
But no, it's human beings.
Human beings in general.
In general.
People will not run if things are going their way as far as politics or policy is concerned, and it happens to benefit an individual, even although there's a lack of transparency, that individual will tend not to want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
It's only when things go wrong is when you hear the general squealing.
Yeah.
And again, part of being a citizen is making sure, as Duane continues to have a way, everything has to be transparent. People have to participate.
You have to have control.
And our system of government does not allow for participation.
So what I understand is we keep using the word politician in terms of governments and all the other topics of it. Why does the private sector organizations get a free pass? I just gave an example there where it takes 2 hands to clap.
You shouldn't.
And so we shouldn't really be just focusing on the politician. We should be focusing on society in general. And you know, you heard you use the word bribing and corruption and all that, but to me, that's one part of the process. Because if you say that there are politicians out there that are being bribed and they're corrupt or whatever, whether it's true or imagined, they don't do it on their own. There's other people on the other side. So the same organizations that we're asking for governance, they have to, within their organization itself, make sure they have the governance within their organization to make sure that this doesn't happen. So if you don't have a bribe, or you can't have a bribee. So in a utopian world is that we would have a situation where we would have governance on both sides of the aisle, focusing on the aisle being on the government side and on the citizenry, I'll get it soon, as well as the public sector organizations. Private sector organizations.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to be inclusive.
Yes.
One of the challenges with some of the private sector organizations is that they are to advocate for their organization. And sometimes they do it very selfishly. Even to the extent that I've heard at times when you push a particular direction, say, let's say the government comes to us for comments on what needs to go into the budget. I was actually heard or told, don't do this one, let's only go for what we think we can get, rather than what we need to have. And part of advocacy is to be very clear as to articulating what we need to have. What is the ecology or an economy that we need to have, rather than just an incrementalist approach. Sometimes you really do have to be disruptive, and I want to be clear what I mean disruptive. The definition of an entrepreneur, the true definition of an entrepreneur is a person who disrupts the economy significantly by changing what exists to improve it.
Yeah.
Right? So you have disruptive technology. Cell phone has been one of the most disruptive technologies from the late 90s through to this early century. Technology's changed that far. And what we need to be able to do in our economy is to create that disruption that changes the path that we're on to be.
I agree. And it starts to not, this is why I said that the governance has to not just be, I didn't say politics, I said people.
Okay.
Because people without controls in place, you see it with every single day. There are lots of persons in workplaces where if you had zero controls in place and they had the opportunity and the motivation, which in our accounting circles we call that the fraud triangle, then more than likely will commit fraud. It takes a lot of integrity to have an opportunity to commit a fraud and choose not to do so. So this is why controls have to be in place. And one of the controls that we need is for people to not be afraid, as some persons were commenting, about speaking out. And especially if you see persons start that, not to leave, you agree with what they're saying, but you're too afraid to join in because one person's voice isn't really going to make a difference. But if you had all of Barbados speaking out against persons pushing back on integrity legislation and about organizations who encourage certain behaviors that we know is going to have direct consequences in our election period, then what are we really trying to achieve? Right,
but we have to get that one voice that's credible to get people listening.
Yeah.
And then from when they start listening, they start talking and they start taking action. So it really does start with one voice.
Yeah.
And then which creates the groundswell, and people are listening, people become active. And it builds for a stronger government. And a government is comprised of the politicians and people like us, the citizenship, as well as the private sector organizations and the unions. That's what government is about. It is not about those 15 or 17 people sitting in cabinet. If we choose not to be part of the governance infrastructure that keep those people accountable, then we can never expect to have transparency, accountability, and participation.
One, you think, Krystle, remind me of an example I was going to make tonight too with the governance. It's similar to, in a more basic example, is a referee in a football game or basketball game, any game. If you don't have those, there's no order.
Yeah.
And without order, there's no checks and balances. From the auditing perspective, it's always called checks and balances.
Yeah.
So that's really where the governance comes in. We seem to veer off and headed straight into corruption. And the two, governance and corruption, is related but not necessarily. It's
because without governance, you can lead to corruption, but it does not necessarily mean there is corruption.
Correct. So what I always told when is that you give somebody a key to a building because it keeps honest people honest.
Yes.
Because you know they have a key to the building. A couple of the comments that came through while looking is that private sector is to blame. They're just as much, have to be held accountable.
Everybody got to take piece of the pie.
If we're talking corruption,
Everybody.
you have to say that there's two parts of a pie, and they go together.
I would
and
even
they have
say
to be whole. They have, and in my opinion, if you had to say who you hold more accountable and responsible, I would have to say private sector, because you can change governments every 5 years, but they don't change the private sector.
I would say there are three persons involved, because the people help with this participation by either keeping silent or looking to see what they can get out of these private sectors indirectly, because when you participate in certain activities around voting time, which we shall not name, but you know what I'm talking about, when you are receiving certain things, how do you think that these persons were able to afford those things? And you have to stop selling out yourselves, because you are participating in the very thing that you then complain about for the next 5 years. So you've got to give the government a break where that is concerned, because obviously they're under pressure to provide these things for you. So private sector, government, people of Barbados, all three of us have to take responsibility for where we are right now and the lack of accountability and transparency that exists currently.
Adherence to the guidelines regarding accountability and governance. I just want to throw one last thing. Barbadians need to understand that ministers should not be employing people. That's not their role. The role of a minister is not operational. It's not even responsible managing a ministry. Their responsibility is to set the policy guidelines. And we have created a culture in Barbados where we constantly bombard politicians for things which are operational, and they feel that they cannot refuse. And everything for the people who intend to stand for the polls, to face the polls within the next 18 months, they need to start to understand that their role is not to satisfy the personal requests of a member of the public.
Yes.
Their responsibility is to provide leadership and policy guidance. And if a person needs to have a reference letter, then that's done in the constituency office and goes in along with standard job application.
Yes.
No minister should intervene in terms of calling and say, please find a job for that person. Once you start down that line, you've taken one level of accountability of the system.
So we have a question here. The question is, moving forward, is how do we as citizens work together to hold the GOB accountable? First and foremost, there must be transparency by the GOB. We as citizens need to demand this as it does not exist. my opinion, is what I said in the presentation. For us to work together to hold the government accountable, transparency, and there's participation. We as citizens, we are responsible for doing that. We can do that through mechanisms where I say that, you know, your parliamentary representative, that's the first step. Second step is we're all part of some organization in one way or another. You have an issue and you think it needs ventilating, and it's not like minor issues, just you think it's something critical and that we need ventilation on it. Write your organization, call them, force them to do it. I'll give you one example. During the Cahill issue, I was very anti Cahill from early on. I didn't like what I saw, and I didn't like what was going on, and there's no transparency. There were many calls for what was actually going on. In my opinion, from what I assessed, I thought it had the potential to be one of the biggest economic and environmental disasters for Barbados. I saw a circular come out from the Chamber of Commerce inviting me to a lunch session, and they were talking about recycling and everything, which was great. So I called them and asked, right, it's great that you're doing environmental recycling and trying to promote this. Where's the discussion on Cahill? I was told at that time they didn't want to include it because it was too controversial. Well, that struck a little chord in me, and I do what I do. I wrote them a nice little long letter, and I highlighted the issues why I think they should be addressing it. That was I think it was the Monday. The Friday, I called from person at the chamber, and they said, we now understand what you were trying to tell us, because we went to the town hall meeting on Wednesday and they understood then that this was an issue. And they changed the whole format of their lunch session the following week, and they put Cahill on front and center on the burner, and Tracy Shuffler was the president at that time, and she did a great job in highlighting the issues. I remember after the session, Tracy and Lisa asked me, when will you join the chamber? And my answer to them was, when you grow a spine. And the reason for that is that why they were seeing all of this go on, and I have tremendous respect for both Lisa and Tracy, and I think they did a great job in ventilating the issues. But as a membership, you didn't need Tracy or Lisa to do that. You're a membership, you know it's an issue. Why didn't people in the membership go to them and say, hey, this seems to be like an issue, we can't get any information on it, why don't we have a session about it, try to find out more about it? Why did they take, I'm not even a member of the chamber, why did it take somebody like me to do a letter writing to them to get them to motivate to go to action? I'm not picking on the chamber, I'm picking on everyone. We need to step up. We need to, if there are issues that have a significant impact on this country, we need to step up. More importantly, we need to work together, not just criticize. Part of what we're doing here in the grouping, we just want to highlight some issues at this point in time. But in going forward, we want to try to use you participating in terms of how we can make suggestions to move Barbados forward.
Sorry, Troy just dropped a very rude comment in response to Andrew's question, because Andrew Simpson, the late Andrew, was asking if the Governor General can't assist. If we had to lobby the Governor General, would he be able to?
The Governor General has very limited authority to intervene.
What's the point? I should say that one.
No, there are certain things that where there's like the police commission and things that report directly to him that are defined within the Constitution, and he can take certain actions in that regard. He can take action if a parliamentary group comes to him and says, we have lost confidence in the leader of the opposition or the leader of government, he can then take action because he directly petitioned within the framework of the Constitution. But unfortunately, the Governor General cannot intervene in the law into certain other things. He cannot intervene with the day-to-day running of government. He does not have that authority. But I just want to go back to Duane's point.
Okay.
We don't, what we avoid doing in Barbados is being controversial and responsive. I mean, when you are advocate, when you are an organization or an individual who is an advocate, by that nature, you have to do controversial. And until we understand that within our framework and our structure, we will always be having this conversation. We will always have this conversation. It is our right. Any person who feels threatened by a minister of government or a public servant, there are mechanisms to hold those people accountable.
There was one comment made by Natalie. Trade unions need to step up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
They're a very integral part of the social partnership, and what we are saying is that it is all inclusive. Everyone needs to step up and clap together.
Yeah.
That being government, the varying organizations, the unions, and we, the people of Barbados. We all have to. We live here. This is our only country.
Yeah.
And we need to get together to make it work. Mark Allison asked, well, what's the next step again? What now we identified? Well, again, what we are trying to do here, we're only a small grouping with you, is we're trying to put things forward that can help put us better, to move us forward in the right direction. So we have a couple of things planned over the next couple of weeks, and we're hoping to not just come and highlight things that are going wrong. We want to do it in a constructive way. We also want to make sure that we have the right people, the right organizations. There's BIBA. What plans do BIBA have? How can we highlight what plans they have? How can we help BIBA move forward? In the last report, the IMF report, if my memory serves me correctly, and don't hold me to it, I think the contribution went from 300 million to 90. How do we get it back up? What's the issues having? How can we work instead of just sitting and criticizing? How can we as citizens help to get this back on? How do we get BIBA to do this? How do we get the agricultural section working? Environmental, that's one of the issues we got to look at. There's savings that can be had from the environmental side, the environmental issues. Can we get people who are here, who are specialists on environment, come share their views of how we can do this, all in a constructive way? But we have to work together. We can't just sit and be critical and just be Facebook pions and just keep flashing out all kind of comments, but get nowhere. We're hoping that we can turn this grouping into an action type grouping and not just talk.
Right. For me, Mark, come and join us on an evening.
He's welcome.
Take this model and replicate it.
Yeah.
Get other people engaged on the next week broadcast. Invite them, open it up. The more that all of us, are heard or replicated, the better we will come at holding people accountable. Because it changes the dynamic. Because doing this demonstrates to whoever is that I don't want to say targeting, whoever is in government, whoever is leading the private sector organizations or trade unions. We are now having a voice directly into them and holding all of them accountable. And we have to participate. There's no point being a member of ICAP or a member of BIBO or BNA or whatnot and never go to a meeting, never serve on a committee, never be heard. If you cannot be heard, the idea that you have sitting in your stomach stays there and it does not impact anyone else.
That's a good point. How many of you, some of you may have had the benefit of being on organization boards or varying boards in whether it's sporting or whatever, how many of you have been on boards where the majority of the work on the board ends up being done by one or two people?
Yep.
And when you have meetings, let's say for example you have 50 people, 5 or 6 show up, depending on the organization. And that's really where the psyche has to change, because we are not in a great situation by any shape, fashion or form economically. Jeremy is not here. Kudos to him for doing what he does. He highlights the issues. Not only does he highlight the issues, he has solutions. And some of them are misquoted in the paper, some of them are quoted correctly.
Yeah.
Krystle, still my hero, my inspiration. She came out and did the Auditor General report, and for 5 years I've been telling people about the Auditor General. Nobody paid attention until Krystle started to do it. And there's, yeah, I agree, but that's obvious. But as Troy said, educate, inform, and the point is not just being critical, just to be constructive. And moving forward from here, I would like to see where we get the organizations, our organizations, whoever we involve, to be involved, be more active, not just be critical of government, not just be critical of any of the, how many parties are there now? 5, I think?
4 or 5 parties.
4 or 5 parties, not be critical of any of the 4 or 5 parties, but come up with solutions. We have problems, don't come with problems, let's come with solutions. From next week, we're hoping we come with solutions. We want to find out how can we put things forward, how can we make this work. I was totally aghast when on the weekend I had one of the Facebook Live events, and the opposition leader, she mentioned something about issues that private business was having. Why should she have to bring it to the fore? Where was the private organizations saying this is what we need? Why they need it? Again, that's if you cannot do that, give us back our tax dollars.
Yeah.
If you have a subvention from government, which is our tax dollars, because the government has no money, and you can't do it, give us back it. Do what you want to do on your own dime, not ours.
Well, apparently we only have like 1 minute left, so very, very, very quickly, I just wanted to also give my 2 cents. The first thing you have to recognize is that no one person has all the answers. I am a small piece of the puzzle in terms of coming up with a solution. And if more persons came into the conversation, then we'd be able to come up with some actionable plan to be able to move forward and help to improve governance. At the end of the day, it's not every idea that I come up with that actually is going to work, and some of them might be complete crap. I have good friends that tell me when they're talking crap, and a few of the ideas is actually be something that is workable. But if everybody comes together and is fine with the fact that if everything you come up with ain't gonna be good, but enough people coming together and throwing out ideas, you might be able to find something that works. Lady suggested trade unions. I wasn't even studying trade unions and the roles that they could play in helping to push governance. We need to start having these discussions, because there are a lot of issues too that people don't even know where to start. But when you get the conversation going and get people thinking and get people involved, then you're able to come up with ideas that can actually work. So I don't know if anybody wants to add their 2 cents before we wrap up.
Yeah, just let the conversation be robust,
Yes.
constructive, and
Respectful.
and just think about what. Just let me use a phrase, Earl Barrow's phrase of his mirror image. Let us each construct our own mirror image of ourselves and what we want our country to be.
Any last words again?
Colin said it all. We just need to be constructive. We get too argumentative, especially with social media. Let us come forward with points. You know where to find us. Place your questions or queries on the Facebook page. You can message us privately. It doesn't matter. We will try to answer.
Yes.
But we would like to have public dissemination. So you have suggestions of how we can put Barbados forward, let us just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. Let's stop all the talk. I am sick and tired of going to seminars where you have about 25 all good ideas and they get put on the pile of all the other good ideas that was there from the last seminar.
Yeah.
I think I went to my last seminar last year, but that was okay. That was good. I had to say, but we come with good ideas from seminars and do nothing about it. Let's put a stop to that.
Yeah.
All the talk, finish. It's time for action. We're going in a very bad place. Let us make this what we were before. We're a lovely country. Let us keep it going that direction.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Just a quick promo. I will be a guest on the podcast with Adrian Green and Bajan Farai on Tuesday, I believe at 7:30. I will confirm the exact time. So they literally just started their show on Tuesday. I went and I peeped a little bit at what they had going on. So look out for that. I'm sure that Adrian Green and Bajan Farai will be promoting it on their pages as well. But yes, I will be their first guest. So y'all could come and tune in, and if I talking crap, just private message me so I don't be shamed in public.
No, I can do it in public.
But yes, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate Duane got his finger up.
Last one.
Last one.
Remember, we not doing it all. It's got to come from you all as well.
Yes.
So Mark, we'll see you here next week.
Yay. Bye everybody. Have a blessed Thursday. Blessed Thursday.